Alright, howdy folks, weekend's here. Time for another winter backpacking trip. And I figured I would go through the gear that I use for the winter time. I always say I'm going to do this when I get back from a trip. And I never do because it's late at night and the gear's dirty, wet, gotta get it out, dry it, clean it. And I just never get to it. So this time I figured I would run through everything quick before I left on this trip. This is going to be everything I carry. I'm not going to go through the clothes I wear. There's a few extra pieces of clothing in there that I'll go through quick, but it's mainly just the gear side of it. So I'll weigh the pack quick and yeah, let's dive into it. It is 21 pounds 12 ounces. So like I said, that's without food and water, and that's without snowshoes if you have to attach the snowshoes or crampons in there. So 21 pounds 12 ounces. Okay, let's talk about some of the tools before we get into the pack. Here's some of the tools I use. The Kahtoola Microspikes, usually more than enough for hiking in the wintertime, especially you know, just rolling hills. Nothing extremely steep, but they work pretty good even in some pretty steep stuff. So definitely these, and the MSR Revo Ascents, an excellent snowshoe. I've gotten quite a few years out of these and they're still kicking strong. No problems with them at all. One thing I would suggest if you're buying a snowshoe is to definitely look into one that has a heel lift in it. Going uphill definitely helps, saves a lot of strain on your calf muscles. I would definitely suggest that. When the microspikes aren't enough and there's a lot of ice, which happens toward the I would say more toward the end of winter when you're getting a lot of warming and cooling, but yet there's a lot of snowfall and it seems to build up a lot harder ice. So sometimes on some of the very steep parts it's a little sketchy using just microspikes, and that's good. These black diamond contact crampons, these are strap-on crampons, so they'll fit any shoe, and it doesn't have to be climbing specific shoes. So these come in very handy in those conditions. These do not get used anywhere near as much as these and these. Another plus with these snowshoes is not only do you have a crampon underfoot, but all the way around the edge is basically one huge crampon. It's just teeth, and these get a lot of bite climbing up hills, so these are very good also. But again, you get on very slippery, hard ice, this is the way to go. Another thing that goes on every winter trip, snow shovel. Backcountry Access is the manufacturer of this. It's got a telescoping handle to it, very handy. Great piece of equipment for cleaning snow, clearing snow. It doesn't get used in the dirt, but the edge gets beat up a little bit just from hitting rocks underneath the snow, stuff like that. But that'll either go on the pack or in the sled, one or the other. Another piece of gear is the black diamond ice axe. This is the Raven. It's your very basic, what they call, I guess, a glacier axe, and it's just it's got a straight handle on it. This does not get used very much at all. It's more of just having in for safety if you do get one of those sketchy spots. So not a lot of use, but it's there just in case. And Gaiters, very important. Very handy to have. These are the Black Diamond Front Point Gore-Tex Gaiters. I use these all winter long and even in some of the mud season. But I use them with the Microspikes, I use them with Crampons, use them snowshoeing. Definitely a worthwhile investment to keep the snow and mud and debris out of your boots, and helps keep your pant legs dry, help keep you warmer. And last but not least, hiking poles. These are the Black Diamond Alpine Carbon Cork, and these have been with me for quite some time, and I will say they're excellent poles. The only thing that I've done is on one of the poles I busted one of the lower shafts, but they make replacement parts, so easy to fix. Great pole, lightweight. I like hiking with poles, so I use those very often. That covers the tools side of things, I guess you could say. The stuff that kind of gets strapped to the outside of the pack. Of course, that'll add to that 21-pound base weight, depending on what I bring. And like I said, I never really carry all this stuff together. It's always an either-or kind of situation. Crampons and ice axe would be one combination, where the Microspikes and snowshoes would be another combination. If I'm camping and there's snow, this always goes. Trekking poles, they go 90% of the time. I'm pulling the sled, they don't go. But if I'm snowshoeing, they definitely go. If I'm using more crampons and ice axe area, they don't go. So it's a little bit of you got to kind of look at where you're going and what your objective is for this. Let's dive into the bag here, and let's start. I guess we'll start right on the outside here. This is a center pole for my tent. This is the Ruta Locura tent pole. It's a carbon fiber, weighs nothing, and this is what I use as a center pole for my HMG Ultamid 2. Now, if I'm bringing my trekking poles, I have another video that shows that I will not bring this. I will simply take out the ends and put the pole piece that I made in there to create the pole. And again, that's when I'm trying to go really light and just save some weight. So that's the idea behind that. Tent stakes, I use the MSR Groundhogs. So that's my tent stake of choice. And a lot of times in the wintertime, as long as the snow is not too deep and you shovel down a nice platform for your tent, you can still pound these into the ground, and they're tough enough to do that with. Now when you can't do that and you got a lot of snow, that's where the MSR blizzards come in handy. So again, don't need to carry both. A lot of times they do in the wintertime. In the summertime, obviously not carrying the blizzards, but in the wintertime, having options makes it a lot nicer, especially when it's cold and the wind's blowing and it's miserable. Water purification in the winter, use a Steripen. This is the Steripen Ultra. Don't use a water filter in the winter because of freezing. It's much easier to throw this in a bag with other electronics and batteries, and throw a hand warmer in there, and then tuck it on the inside of my coat, and it'll keep everything going good, and the cold won't bother it at all. Lights. Now, I always carry a headlamp with me, but in the wintertime, and I don't do this in the summer, but in the wintertime I always carry a tent light. And not trying to go, in most winter trips, not trying to crush a lot of miles. So I prefer, because of the long nights, I'd rather have a light in the tent to read by, play games, do whatever. So that little bit of extra weight in the wintertime, definitely worth it. Sea to Summit long-handled spoon to eat with. This is definitely an excellent piece of gear for the wintertime, actually anytime. It's the Big Sky International food cozy, I guess you could call it. It's melted, of course, because, you know, sitting by the fire, putting it too close to the fire. These things are very delicate. Your food, to rehydrate it, pour the water in it, seal it up, set it in there, close it up, give it 15-20 minutes, whatever it takes, and when you pull it out of there, it's still warm. So that's definitely handy. Then of course toilet paper, wipes, a little piece of cordage there, some powder. That was everything in the pockets. Now up here, I carry an Outdoor Research water bottle, Parka, I guess they call it, and never had water freeze in this, so got a nice little Velcro thing, can be strapped anywhere on the pack. I usually carry it up on top, just so it's out of my way, not swinging. I mean, if you put it on a strap, it swings, kind of knocks into you. So I put it up there. Like I said, works great. Never had any water freeze in it. It's Outdoor Research product. And then, of course, the Z Light. This goes under my inflatable mattress. So just another layer of protection from the snow. And now the bag is an HMG 4400 Southwest, and this is somewhat new to me, and so far I'm really enjoying it. I like the bags. I like the one big bag part. So anyway, top of the bag I keep my tent. Hyperlight mountain gear, Ultamid 2. Usually when I'm sleeping in the tent by myself, I put up just the outer. I do not use the inner. When there's two of us in the tent and somebody wants the inner, I'll put the inner up in the winter time. But there is no need for the inner in the winter. There is no need for the inner in the winter because there's no bugs. So I don't really use it myself. Like I said, if somebody's coming along and they don't like sleeping on snow, then I'll put it up. But to me, this is all you really need, and weighs nothing. Excellent tent. I have some videos on it. Digging in, I have a Soto Windmaster stove in here. This is an Evernew Pot. More than enough to heat water with, and do a little light cooking. It's pretty good size, very light. Keep the stove right inside of it, and yeah, the Soto Windmaster and the Evernew titanium. So, and of course, always carry a larger size fuel canister. And if you find that this is getting, the temperature's getting too cold outside for it, and you don't have a fire going, that, and of course you shouldn't set these next to the fire, but close enough to get a little warmth from it. If your hands can't warm it up, what always works is a hand warmer underneath it in no time. Again, you only have to put it on there for just a few seconds and it warms it right up. So this does not go with me on every trip, because if the temperatures aren't going to be cold enough, I really don't bother carrying it. This is the Sea to Summit Reactor Extreme. It's a sleeping bag liner, and you know, they claim it adds 15 to 20 degrees or something like that to your bag, which is not true, but I'm a cold sleeper, so simple first aid kit. It's got hand warmers, fire starter, things like that. It's more geared to winter right now, so I have extra lighter, hand warmers, fire starter. So it's bigger and heavier than usual. It's probably twice the weight that it usually is. A piece of clothing. This is my down coat. It's a Rab Neutrino. This goes when it's only going to be very cold. So this is like the sleeping bag liner. I'm not going to bring this if it's going to be above single digits. So there's just no need for it, because it'd be overkill. So when it gets down to you know, 10 degrees and below, you definitely want a little bit of extra something to put on. Clothing bag, usually in here, just a set of merino wool base layer to sleep in, and a spare hat and a pair of knit gloves to sleep in. So most of the time it's just sleeping clothes that are in this bag, kind of extra clothing. Alright, Thermarest Xtherm. Don't need to say anything about that. Just about everybody uses this for cold weather. Definitely a great sleeping pad. I don't roll it up, I fold it up and throw it in the bag. Makes it a lot easier. Pair of heavy mitts. Again, kind of goes along with the big down coat and the liner. If it's going to be 20 degrees and above, usually I won't bring heavy mitts like this. I'll just bring multiple pairs of lighter gloves, but I kind of pack this with some extra worst case scenario kind of stuff. So these are very warm. These are an OR mitt, and it's got the I don't know what they call it. It's got the finger separate, so the trigger finger or lobster claw or whatever it's called. So, but great gloves. They have a removable liner in them also. So use these when it really gets cold, because those are very warm. Pillow. Rab Hot Socks. Now, like I said, I'm a cold sleeper, so my feet tend to get cold. These are definitely a game changer for me. I would not recommend getting these as in place of the booties to walk around in. The sole on these is very thin, so you're not getting a lot of heat retention through the bottom. But as far as surrounding your foot and inside a sleeping bag, and if you got to get out in the night and throw your boot on quick, they are thin enough and conform enough to slide your foot in your boot. So for me, definitely need this even when it's not in the single digits. So these come with me all the time. Love them. Can't recommend those enough. And I think that's it, minus the sleeping bag. So the sleeping bag, this is a North Face Inferno -20 bag. Like I said, I'm a cold sleeper. So between this, my hot socks, and a lightweight base layer, it was 11 degrees the other night. I was completely warm. Everything was good. So I'm not so sure that I would be comfortable in this at 20 below. In fact, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't unless I had possibly something like this Rab coat on and some insulated pants, but I can see 0 without any problem, maybe even 10 below without any problem. But you know, like they said, always take the temperature rating of a sleeping bag and add 10 to 20 degrees to it, depending on how cold you sleep. So the biggest reason I got a 20 below bag was not only was it on sale, but I figured, okay, if it's 20 below, I'm a cold sleeper, I'll add 20 degrees to that, so we'll say it's good down to 0. 0, 5 below, maybe 10 below. So I got myself covered to at least 0, maybe a little more. So that's the idea behind that. And I hope this video was helpful. If you liked it, please give me a subscribe, give me a like. I'd appreciate it. And if you have any questions, leave them below. I'd be more than happy to answer anything on any of this gear. This is the stuff I use. I use it in the wintertime. I use a lot of this stuff in the summertime too. But this is my winter loadout, and I just thought, hey, it'd be kind of neat to go through it and see what I got. So, all right, I will talk to you later.